I don't think the sentence is long enough, in my opinion, for what she's done to us all. But I'd just like to thank everyone. That's all I can really say.
Eleanor Williams has just been sentenced to 8.5 years following false accusations of rape against several men over several years. In the case, the judge said it remained unknown as to exactly what her motivation was. But actually, psychiatrists have seen this kind of rare case before and have various theories as to what is going on here. The impact on the men who were falsely accused of rape has been immense. One of them had the word rapist spray painted across their house. Another served over 70 days in jail. Another was sectioned under the Mental Health Act following the allegations. All of them felt suicidal, and some made suicide attempts. So the impact of a false rape allegation like this by one person accusing several men over an extended period has a dramatic impact and causes a huge amount of suffering.
There's no winners here today. I feel no sense of triumph, only sadness. For the loss of the years, the impact on my family, here we are, and the true impact that this will have on true victims.
We know that rape and sexual assault are some of the most underreported crimes of all. Roughly speaking, depending on which study you look at, roughly speaking, only about 5% of all rapes and sexual assaults are ever reported to the police. And of that number, the research evidence indicates that about 5% of that number are probably false allegations of rape. So when you do the maths, it turns out to be the case that the number of false allegations of rape are probably 0.005% of the total number of rapes. Despite the fact that it's such a small number, the research evidence indicates the police themselves hold some troubling beliefs about how prevalent the false accusations of rape really are. The survey evidence indicates that police forces around the world tend to believe the rate of false allegations of rape is much higher than it actually is.
We took the allegations from Eleanor Williams really seriously, and it was as a result of that that we were able to then investigate and discover that the allegations had been fabricated and were essentially lies.
It makes it very difficult for them to investigate these crimes properly, and it also puts people off reporting this crime, because one of the reasons they don't report it is they don't think they're going to be believed by the police. Because if the police go around holding the wrong beliefs about it, it makes it very difficult for them to investigate these crimes properly, and it also puts people off reporting this crime. There are two different kinds of false allegations of rape. There's the one-off allegation, where someone makes an allegation against one person and it's one incident that's being reported. It's important to understand that the motivation that drives someone to make multiple allegations of rape or sexual assault against a multiple number of different victims is a very different set of motivations for the one-off kind of case of a false allegation of rape. In a case where someone is doing it over an extended period of time and targeting several different victims, there are various theories as to what is going on here. One theory is that this is a person who did experience some kind of sexual assault when they were younger and experienced what it was like to be a victim. And in various ways, this kind of victim mentality has permeated the way they conduct their lives, and so their relationship with the world is one of being a victim. And sometimes there are advantages to being a victim. And this theory is referred to by psychologists as the lure of the victim role, or the lure of being a victim. What's attractive about being a victim to some people is that if you have victim status, sometimes you see on the internet people claim to have cancer when they don't have cancer, and the psychological makeup of this kind of person is very similar to the kind of person who might make multiple rape allegations, false allegations over a long period of time. The lure of victim status is that it gives you a lot of power and it gives you a lot of attention. If your life has not been very successful and you find it difficult for people to be interested in you and have relationships with you, sometimes becoming a victim, falsely becoming a victim, gets you attention, it gets you power, you are given status and respect, and it gets you care. People start looking after you and being concerned about you in a way they may not do if you were not a victim. Sometimes one of the reasons why people may make allegations is malice. They're out to get you in some way. In the one-off instance of a false rape allegation, when someone's been hurt by someone else, classically maybe a boyfriend or a girlfriend or in a relationship, someone is leaving someone and they want to take revenge, and sometimes they have the mentality which is, if I can't have you, then no one can have you. Malice is sometimes the theory is what's going on in a false allegation of rape. But how do you square malice when it's many different men, none of whom you might know very well? Well, maybe you have malice against a particular group of people. It may be a racial group, it may be a gender group, and that may arise out of some kind of traumatic childhood experience. But malice is a very common theory as to what may be going on with a false rape allegation. Another theory that links sometimes false claims to have a disease, which is very common now on the internet, is not just that it gets attention, but the term that's sometimes used by psychologists to refer to this particular motivation is called malingering. Malingering occurs when there's a direct, concrete material or financial advantage you're going to get from making a false claim. Sometimes, however, there's no direct material gain, but there's an emotional gain. And if there's an emotional gain, what is that emotional gain? That emotional gain could be care, could be attention, could be respect. It could be the case that now you're the center of everyone's attention because they feel sorry for you and they look after you. And when you say you need something or you need the other thing, you have huge power because of your victim status. So the two main motivations is to figure out what is the gain here. Is the gain material or is it emotional? Sometimes it's both. The judge in the case of Eleanor Williams, in searching to try to understand why she'd made these allegations, and the judge appeared to still feel at the end of the case that it wasn't clear why, did comment on the fact that she had a history in the past of self-harm and she'd had difficulties during her childhood. What is extraordinary about this case is the fact that this woman attacked herself with a hammer, amongst possibly other weapons, in order to try and create the idea she'd been attacked by these men about whom she'd made these false allegations of rape. So one theory that psychologists would be looking at is if she had a history of self-harm, as is hinted at in the court, did that explain why she was able and willing to inflict harm upon herself, given that past history, in order to create the idea or add evidence to the idea that actually she'd been raped? Is there some childhood link between how comfortable she may have become with self-harm and the fact there was a very strong piece of evidence of self-harm in this case that was very striking and contributed maybe to the police believing her more than they might otherwise have done? One very common theory the police hold about why some people make false allegations of rape is what's called a mental illness theory. They don't really know why the person's doing it, but they just say that person's mentally ill. They're deranged in some way, and that seems to be an explanation. Interestingly enough, in this particular case, we understand that Eleanor Williams was examined by a psychiatrist and was declared to be fit to stand trial and to end up going into prison. She was not sent to a special hospital. She was not sent to a psychiatric hospital. In other words, mental illness psychiatric disturbance of a serious nature was not relied upon as an explanation for why she did these things. That means she was of sound mind, according to the psychiatrist who examined her, and kind of fully knew what she was doing. She wasn't suffering from some delusion or hearing voices, etc., etc. However, despite that fact, it is still the case that psychiatrists and psychologists believe there has to be some kind of disturbed motivation that explains why someone would do this over an extended period of time with several different people. Often what is invoked in this situation is a personality disorder of some kind. Maybe someone is psychopathic and they are born with psychopathic tendencies. So the judge commented that in this particular case there's a little sign of remorse from the culprit, and psychopaths and particular kinds of personality disorder don't show remorse, they don't show empathy, and they're very self-obsessed and pursue their own ends. So a personality disorder of some kind may explain why people do this kind of thing, but it is striking that in this case, despite the fact that behavior went on over a long period of time and many victims were involved, the psychiatrist's view was this cannot be explained by mental illness.